Hello, everyone. Before we start the podcast, I'd like to mention Pro Political Gear. Check out propoliticalgear.com for your political apparel today.
Hello, this is Pro Political Pod. It's May 10th, recording this, and we unfortunately have had a bit of a delay. I've been sick for the past couple days, so I haven't really been able to record too well. But today, we're back into it. We're going to catch up with some stories that we missed out on, but also stay tuned because we're also going to be talking about updates in terms of Tucker Carlson and Donald Trump's jury that was decided today. But before we get into that, like I said, we're going to talk about some of the things that we missed out on the past couple days.
Let me be clear.
You
peddle false narratives.
Sexy boo. We'll see who cancels who.
Watch me.
All right, yes. And I mean, listen, we have so much stuff to talk about, and we will be providing another episode this week because we did miss last week. And last week, I didn't get a chance to do this, but I'd like everyone to wish Andrew a happy birthday. I know it's late, but it was his birthday this past Saturday. So, and yeah, okay. So, into not so happy news at all. I hate to start out like this. I just wish you a happy birthday, and then now we're going into this depressing news. But I mean, what news is good to tell? I really don't know. So we're gonna start off with Jordan Neely. If you've seen the videos, if you've read articles, you know that this man was homeless, had countless arrests, a little over 40. He died at the age of 30 in the hands of a former Marine who was 24 years old. He was known locally with some people as a Michael Jackson impersonator. He used to dance on the subways and stuff like that. And this guy was choked out for about 15 minutes. You heard that right, 15 minutes. And the question is who to blame here. I see a lot of blame people talking about, obviously the person that killed him, which of course it's on him for killing him. People want to talk about what about the people on the train, what they could have done, what they didn't do, what should have they done, or should they have done anything? But let me get into it here with a blame that I'm going to point a finger at besides the obvious. Okay? New York City failed Jordan Neely. New York City failed him. And let me tell you why. So, if you're not a New York resident, you probably don't know this and you probably don't care, and that's fine. You're not supposed to really know this. I don't know everything that's going on in another state, in their city. I don't know minor things, but I do because I live in New York City. And let me tell you something about New York City. About a few years ago, in 2021, we had an election. Mayor Adams. Now, he won the election. And previously, we had Mayor Bill de Blasio, which was a real winner. Andrew knows. So, this guy gets into office, right? And, man, doing a terrible job. We thought we couldn't get worse, and it got worse. But specifically, they were going to start this whole mental health program. It was going to be called Thrive NYC. So this is exactly, I'm going to read you from nyc.gov, their website, okay? The Mayor's Office of Operations partners with the Deputy Mayor for Strategic Policy Initiatives and the First Lady's team on the implementation of Thrive NYC. So the First Lady would, of course, be Mayor de Blasio's wife. The city's roadmap to create a mental health system that works for all New Yorkers. Operations provides project and performance management support, tracks Thrive NYC initiatives, and coordinates agencies in the development and implication of policies. Operations also manage the elevations of multiple initiatives. So that is directly from the site nyc.gov. Okay, great. So now that you have that information there, they were given, well, I'll put it this way. De Blasio's wife was given $1 billion to play with here. So that's the money that they were playing. So they were basically in like a sandbox because $1 billion is a lot of money. So how it's supposed to go is like, okay, well, you're going to spend $250 million a year for the next, set amount of years, right? Until you get to 1 billion. And so they questioned about it a few years later. It was like 2018, 2019. Questions started coming. Well, what'd you do? Where's the money? Where'd it go to? And they didn't know what to really say. They were just saying all this stuff, whatever. But in reality, half or most of their expenses, they couldn't even list in court. They couldn't even list anything. Anything. They had minor stuff. But the large sum of money, $1 billion, you can't figure out where that went. So they lost the $850 million. Where did it go?
According to Thrive, every year, 20% of adult New Yorkers are likely to be diagnosed with a mental health disorder. So we filed Freedom of Information requests with more than a dozen city agencies. We asked for annual budgets and itemized expenditures for the 59 programs under Thrive's umbrella, all based on a list from First Lady Chirlane McCray's office. The initial response? Silence. After 2 months of delays, we contacted each agency and the First Lady's office to ask what was going on. All of a sudden, the answers started coming in. It is not what we expected. McCray's office actually gave us a smaller number of programs under Thrive's umbrella, 37, down from 59, and cites program changes between this fiscal year and the next. And while a number of agencies did respond to our latest round of inquiries, most failed to include itemized expenditures. And the budget from McCray's office did not include any expenditures at all. More troubling, we learned some of Thrive's programs get outside funding.
I will tell you, I believe it went right into their pockets. Because it definitely did not go into New York City, and it definitely did not go into the people of New York City. That's who failed him. That's really who failed him. And it's upsetting because then we could go to the two-party structure here. People said, oh, well, if you vote for a Republican, they're better than the Democrats. Okay, you can have that back and forth, but Democrats were supposed to be big on mental health, at least in this moment. And obviously, New York voted for another Democrat. Not that the Republicans had, the best player out there for mayor, but they keep voting Democrat. There's a reason why New Yorkers keep voting Democrat. Now, you could go on, they're dumb, they're this, they're that, and you could go on your whole spiel, and that's fine if you think that way. But mental health is become more of a crisis each and every single day. When you give someone the keys to the kingdom of, okay, this is your job now. You're here to help us. You're here to help the people. You are a public servant. They failed at that. So when you get asked who failed Jordan Neely, who killed Jordan Neely? Yeah, it was the former Marine. Yeah, of course, that's the obvious answer. But the real answer is New York City. They have failed him, and he's not the first. And unfortunately, this will not be the last. This is one of those situations that, I hate to say this, but it did not have to happen, but it had to happen. It's one of those instances where, of course, it didn't have to happen. We could have just had a program. We could have had Thrive NYC going throughout all the 5 boroughs and going to help with $1 billion with everybody's needs. Of course, it didn't happen. So now what are people going to do? People are going to start talking about mental health. Now you just got to have to hope that this conversation still continues, so then New York could actually do something about it. That's the problem. Because then if it doesn't happen, it's just going to repeat itself again. And this doesn't have to happen. It doesn't. But it does because people won't do anything about it. And that's the problem. It's so aggravating that this stuff happens. I mean, you look at it, You look at 9/11. What happened after 9/11? You saw metal detectors in the airports. Okay, that's a solution. That's a solution. Why don't we have solutions to problems? And there's going to be other talks later on, probably in another episode, because this episode is so compact where we talk about mass shootings. But metal detectors works, folks. Mental health institutions work if you have them up, if you fund it. So that's the problem we're dealing with. And that's the majority of what I have to say on the matter. Really upsetting issue, and we're just gonna have to hope that they do something about it.
Yeah, it's really unfortunate, obviously, that this happened, and there's so many like structural problems, right? Just in terms of the circumstances, obviously, that led Neely to that point where he was like on the train, like having like a mental health break and just being in that situation as a homeless man, and then also the guy that killed him, like choking him out and stuff, and not just the fact that he did that, but the fact he wasn't charged for it, because it shows that Neely wasn't. So he's homeless. He doesn't really have anyone to represent him in like a court of law to really properly play justice out. So there really is like a tier system of like how much people value life on like a legal sense too. And maybe him being a Marine kind of made it so that there like him being charged wasn't like a super high priority as well. So just a lot of issues all around. And to go back to the point of homelessness, it's really sad that being homeless is basically like it's like a game set match. It's it can vary to the extent to which people obviously suffer or whatever from it, but by default, just being homeless, like you don't know what you're really gonna like. You don't know what your day to day is gonna be like at all. So some people, I mean, if you're like in a community with a lot of homeless people, you'll notice that they'll stay in certain spots, usually by shelter, sometimes not. And they do that too because it's like they know like the areas that they can stay in, they stay out. It's something that really doesn't get emphasized a lot, especially when it comes to outcomes in electoral politics, because obviously poor people in general don't vote, and especially if you're not homeless, you're probably the last thing you're thinking about is like what party is in control of like the government. So they really don't have like a say in this, and I obviously like I think Neely's an example of someone who basically had like a lifelong, lived like born in poverty, probably spent most or all of his adult life homeless. But it's not just people who like are always poor. Sometimes people just kind of end up in a bad spot or have something happen to them, and then they're out of a home. And the process to get back to that point, it's tough. I mean, because your mental health deteriorates. Having certain things that you would have in a home, because your physical health also will deteriorate in a lot of cases if you don't have like that structure. Um, jobs often you need like a home. Like it's actually crazy, like because you need like an address to like apply for jobs for them to keep in contact with you. It's really tough to break out of that cycle. Most people aren't going to do that. So to Chris's point, yeah, having institutions that are more well funded and developed would have probably saved his life. And the fact that they dropped the ball so hard and lost the funds for it. In a case, I
I
mean, there was
lost.
an investigation into it, but regardless of what happened to it, that money didn't go to where it needed, and this death happened as a result. And it's really a shitty thing that happens.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And for them to lose that money, um, I mean, it's
Yeah.
like it really shows you don't care. Like it really, I don't know how much more of these cases are we gonna see pop up to the point where it's like, oh, maybe we should do something about this.
Well, not
Apparently,
all of them are. And that's just the thing too. Is that, like you said, in the sense where you felt like it had to happen. Obviously, it shouldn't, but because those
yeah.
circumstances are there, it's something that's going to put it into the public sphere of, hey, this is a problem. Because most issues with homelessness are kind of like day to day, whatever. Like you're not going to notice it. most people don't think about homelessness. Like even if you see homeless people like on your commute, you'll see a lot in New York, but
Oh
you're
yeah.
not. It's not something that sticks in most people's minds. It's something that's just in the background, or it's like an inconvenience to them because they're being loud or they're asking me for money or whatever.
Well, a
But
lot of these people too, like it's unfortunate, but not the actual homeless people. A lot of people dress up as homeless to make money.
yeah, I
It's
can
kind
imagine
of
that's a big thing
crazy.
in like around Times Square.
There's a story I actually heard. Someone that I know, and he was working in the city, and he knows this homeless guy that's sitting there, or homeless. Um, and he's sitting there, and someone passes by him, and he's been there for years, and somebody found him after all these years, being like, "Hey, I forgot, I don't know his name," and he says, "Aren't you supposed to be home, or this or that?" Apparently, he has like a wife, kids, a big house. Like, it's just like now thinking about it is really funny to me. I mean, it's really upsetting, I guess, in the sense of like there's actual homeless people out there that really need the attention and all that. But we're New Yorkers, you don't really give if you were to walk on the street and give people money, I mean, you really just be emptying your wallet with how many people you could really give on the street. So I mean, that's why you need programs. That's why you need institutions because guys
Yeah,
like us
charity
can't be
isn't
walking up
super
and down,
sustainable.
And what I was gonna say earlier actually is apparently I think Mayor Adams is actually putting forth a mental health institution, but this is I think before the Neely thing. I was looking a little into that, so we'll see what happens there. But I don't really. I was not gonna
Oh, but the
mention that at
problem with him
first,
is that
but
he's like also defunding a lot of these
yeah,
programs at
of
the same
of
time as he's
course,
doing it. The
yeah.
emphasis on like policing based solutions for a lot of these issues with homelessness or crime or whatever, like it's it's what New York has been kind of prioritizing for like a long time. Whatever petty things that De Blasio says, like at the end of the day, he kind of continued the status quo in terms of the NYPD in a lot of ways. Like even when he defunded the police, like that was like basically just redistributing like
It is
it was like
redistributed
keeping
funds, yeah.
yeah, he just kind of swapped the funds around, but it still was effectively going to the same thing. I think he just declassified like or changed the classification of certain
Yeah.
police work as other work, but effectively the same thing.
I think it was something with like the crossing guards were instead of like
Yeah, it
cops,
was
it was
like
like
stuff like
DOE
that.
instead. Like stuff like that. And I mean, I'm sure some little things were cut too, but it really wasn't like all that. But New York City needs someone who is really going to put forth good ideas, good policies, and actually sign them, bring them to the table, the whole 9 yards.
Yeah.
And that's why if you look in the 20 was it just last year 2022 the governor race, yeah,
Yeah, it was very close.
Governor Hochul, I mean she was never
she
voted
very
in. It was because you
she
know
kind of I mean, it
Cuomo
was
was
like
there,
comfortable, but it was like
but he had to
doable
resign.
for is that Zeldin, right? What's his name? Lee Zeldin.
Lee Zeldin, yeah, it was very doable. He
But
lost
I
by
will say, because
300,000.
you talked about how people in New York keep voting Democrat. I think part of it too is that the Democrat institution in places like New York and Cali, because it's basically like effectively a one-party state, the people that control the state are like the wealthier financial interest types. It's not the underdogs, the people trying to actually win on their ideas. It's the status quo for these
Of
states.
course, it's liberal elites that keeps voting these people in, and
Well, it's the
that's
ones
it.
in the power. I mean, obviously, to some extent, the base does vote for these guys as well when if the ones that do vote in general elections, but
Mhm.
in terms of the representation, it is centrist and elites and stuff like that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Lee Zeldin. I mean, if you don't know,
Like
um,
Adams, it kind of like he's like for like this elitism type stuff, but he was also voted in by like working class people, like
I
working
don't
class
know
like
how
black
they.
people. But it's like you know him personally, especially for something like a mayor, like
Mhm.
that stuff is really important.
If
So
none of you guys know, 300,000 New York is like for a Republican to get that close is very good for them, and I'll say
Yeah.
this: Cuomo, when he was running for his last governor race, he lost. Oh no, no, sorry, he won by like over a million. I think it was
Yeah, I think
1.6,
two
something like that.
things definitely when it
Landslide,
comes to that is that one, Cuomo has better name recognition, like he's just
of
more known.
course.
And two, like I said, I mean, the Democrats keep running are running Republican like style campaigns where it's like they the Republicans will have all these criticisms of the blue states, and the Democrats in the blue states are like, yeah, that's true. That's why we're gonna like meet halfway with you. But the problem is that if you're meeting halfway with them, the people who are voting on those issues are just gonna vote for the full thing. If you're like, yeah, crime's a real issue, we need to, fund the police a good amount. It's like, well, if I care about funding the police, I'm just gonna vote for the people who are gonna fund it more or be more pro police than you're being.
Hmm.
That's a trap that, the establishment neoliberal Democrats find themselves in all the time.
Yeah, and if you look at someone like Adams, like he was a true centrist
Yeah, and I mean
all the way.
that's what he plays into
Um,
too.
you guys heard
Obviously,
my
I think Adams'
banter.
race was a lot further though, or a lot more for him because I think the Republican. I think he did okay, but I feel like I remember his name, but
Oh, Sliwa?
Sliwa, yeah.
He was never gonna win,
He was like
and
known a little bit, but
yeah, but a
he
lot of
wasn't
people
doing.
that knew him were like, I don't know, because and he was. I don't know if you saw the debate. Did you see the debate between him and Adams?
It was like it was like 2 years ago. I'm not gonna remember.
Okay, it was a yell fest. The guy, because the problem is a lot of Republicans feel like they want to be like Trump, but like he was really like trying to hack it in and like just be annoyingly yelling, like not like Trump, but like I mean like he wanted to be like him, but like he, and a lot of
It's all of them,
people,
yeah.
yeah, but no, 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 but this was pretty bad, Andrew. This was bad. Uh, and I was like, oh my god, just do me a favor, please shut up, stop talking. It's not, and it's like I know that Sliwa. I've heard that he's a good guy. A lot of people have talked to him, whatever. He was a gangster. I don't really know more than he is a gangster, and he was nice that people met him. Because I talked to people who met him and everything. But you know what? He's running for office. Of course, he's gonna be nice. But even besides that, I've heard he did good things. But still, man, it wasn't the cut. It wasn't it. Like there could have been a good Republican to run against Adams, and man, like probably still would have lost, but still would have had a better shot. Um,
Yeah,
but
definitely, it's the
yeah,
case that the Democrats in New York need to definitely embrace their younger base and their more like the more progressive aspects of the party. Because if they keep
yeah.
kind of meddling, it's not going to be too long before Republicans start turning New York into a more
But even
competitive
then,
city.
there's some like I'm not gonna get too far into it. But there's some well, like I guess more progressive esque policy that are not working for New York City. So you also have that at play because I think they picked the wrong ones, especially for a city like New York. So you know, we'll see how this plays out. Um, and also another thing I'm going to mention with Jordan Neely that I totally did not mention earlier. Um, his mother actually died. I think when he was like 14. I think actually by her ex boyfriend at the time, and she got choked out. They died the same way. And I was like,
Tragic.
wow, that is one of the
It's
most
freaky
tragic
too.
things. Yeah, it's freaky. It's really freaky. Um, and another thing to mention is that that's when he started to go like, where his mental health really started taking a toll. I mean, that makes sense. I mean, your mom just got choked out. I mean, it's a horrific thing. I mean, you don't want to know that.
Yeah.
Of course not. Of course he wasn't going to be right. Yeah, he punched a 67-year-old woman. Yeah, he belongs in jail for that. But guess what? There was a lot of things he did before that, and no one took that as a sign. Like, oh yeah, he belongs in a mental health institution. We really got to that point. We had to punch a 67-year-old woman. Come on. Like he has four, I think, assault cases against him. He had one where he was on search in like 2021. I mean, obviously this guy is not normal. He's not. You can't put him in a group with other people and say, "Oh yeah, it's fine." Because look what happened. Look what happened. He got himself. He basically got himself killed. And it's all in New York's hands. All in New York City's hands. And until that's fixed, we're gonna see more of these. And it's a problem. It really is. And I hope it gets solved soon, because this is something that's been in the talks for years. This is where everyone in New York's tax dollars are going to. We have no idea. 850 million? I don't know. So it's rough. It really is. And we just hope they do something about it before something else happens.
Yeah, it's pretty sad. In more hopeful news, the Writers Guild of America has decided to go on strike to hopefully, work out a better deal with the Alliance of Motion Pictures and Television producers. They've been having talks for a couple of weeks before. I think it was like 6 months ago. Actually, it was in the news that they were considering going on a strike. And about a week or so ago, at the end of April, they decided to officially start a strike, and that's what they've been doing for the past week or so. And the conditions that led to this strike basically is that they can't reach an agreement when it comes to contracts for their shows, particularly on streaming platforms, and concerns over AI. When it comes to the contracts, more and more writers over time are getting paid worse. In 2013, only 33% of show writers were working for their minimum salaries, like the lowest that they can be paid to write for a show. But this year, 2023, it went from 33% to 50%. So half of writers that get their contracts negotiated for, they're working like minimum salary to write. And that's really bad when you write a show and then it's like, okay, you don't know what you're really getting next. And that's always been the case for, anything creative really. Is it's almost kind of like gig based, but as time goes on and with the streaming platforms, it's getting worse and worse. Because on legacy TV, you had what's called a residual. Residual basically is, if you wrote for like Seinfeld, for some example, that's a really popular show, or The Office. That's a show that they wrote like however many episodes for, and to this day, you can go on like any random like channel or the channels that own the rights to the shows, and you'll still see a rerun of it. And those reruns, those writers will get some kind of cut out of it. That's a really big, that's probably how a lot of these people became so like well off and when it comes to writing. That doesn't exist in streaming because there's no runtime for streaming. You just kind of stream it whenever. And there, to my knowledge, there isn't like an equivalent to that. So, you're basically making what you are getting commissioned to write that show for, essentially. So it's not as stable as it was, with legacy TV. And then when it comes to the AI, it's not like a definite thing, but it's obviously very scary right now because you see art all over the place when it comes to music, when it comes to drawn art. AI is getting more and more good at making that kind of art, and writing is, functionally, it's pretty simple, right? You just put a prompt in, and then it just comes up with the best ideal scenario for it. And if you think about it, there are a lot of shows that they have called tropes, right? TV Tropes is a website that lists all like the common tropes in like a lot of shows and a lot of movies and stuff. Where it's like, oh, like you'll have like you know the working guy that works up and does whatever, or you'll have like just certain trends that you see in shows. So if you can apply that to like a mass level, then what would you need a writer for, right? So obviously the Writers Guild, they want to make it so they have a say in how that technology gets implemented. And it's been ongoing. We had a pretty funny moment from it. One of the main figureheads, I want to say, of the strike, a writer by the name of Adam Convor, he went on CNN for an interview to talk about the strike. And during the interview, he actually called out the CEO of CNN and said, "Hey, I mean, this guy makes like $250 million, and he makes that much more than his writers do." So it was a pretty funny moment.
Huh. Yeah, like, and I knew really nothing of this. I've seen some stuff on social media, but I never really looked into it. So that's why when you said you were looking into this, I was like, all right, great. At least I get something to learn. Uh,
Yeah,
so, I mean, AI is going to be a problem. I mean, we talked
absolutely.
about that. We
We
talked
talk about it all the
about,
time. One of our
yeah,
go-tos.
one of my go-tos. I mean, AI is really going to be a problem. And, I mean, yeah, now think about it, we have talked about that a lot on this show. And you can just type in, like you said, a prompt. That's it. And it'll just draw out this whole big thing. I had someone come up to me and say, "Hey, why don't you just use AI and like if you were doing interviews and stuff like this, and like it'll give you prompts on what to do." It's like I don't need that. It's like I know what I gotta do. It's like I don't want to rely on AI for anything really. There's
Yeah.
certain like parts of AI that could be used for good, I guess. I mean, there's probably something. Mostly is in the
Well, I think
negative.
it's gonna be a tool, like, in the long run. I think there is a way to
Yeah, it needs to
implement it in a
be
smart way. Like, you see, for
heavily
example, I mean,
regulated.
our icon is AI, right?
Oh, of
On our
course.
channel. So, like, there's ways you can kinda use it to circumvent certain things, but at the same time, I mean, we could have paid an artist to draw that, right? That's
I
theoretically a job
I think we
lost.
talked about this the last time. I think it mostly symbolizes the environment we are in slash going into.
Yeah,
So I think that's why the AI art for our thumbnails and whatnot, I feel like works for us and what we talk about and where we're going as not just as a country but as the world. I mean, because it goes bigger than just the United States. I mean, yeah, we mainly talk about the United States because we live there, but I mean, the amount of stuff that AI can do can be troubling. And I'm gonna talk about this in an episode coming out this week. I'm actually gonna talk more on it. Um, I mean, these guys have every right to be upset with what's
yeah.
going on.
I definitely
So,
think the more
yeah.
tangible reason, though, it definitely is just the general contracts and the issues with the more kind of like gig-based work that we're transitioning towards. That's the other aspect of the modern economy that's been kind of tough to deal with, is
Mhm.
that gig work is cool, like, in certain ways. Like, if you're already like stable, then if you're already stable, then you can basically, gig work is just extra money on top of that, right? But if you're not stable, or if you're like, if that's the only option you have, then it's scary. You don't really know how much. Like, some days maybe you'll make like a just enough, maybe you'll make a little bit more, and then some days you might make less. So guaranteeing that, listen, I'm making not just a minimum, but I'm making enough to get through it. Because that's why, Adam brought up the issue with the CEO of CNN making so much more money than his workers, because it's like, you guys have the money, but it's just going towards the top only and not the people actually bringing you there. And that's the core of, having this guild or this union, to say, have some kind of say, like, hey, we want our cut.
Yeah. Um, Definitely something. Did this end or they still are they still doing
It's
this?
it's ongoing.
It's ongoing. I
It's
think they're actually. I
it,
think I
it-
saw a clip in New York. I think they're also doing it in the
yeah, they're doing it
city.
in New York. I think the three biggest places is LA, New York, and Atlanta, because those are like the biggest cities in the country for
Yeah.
writing and, video.
Oh
A
yeah,
lot of them are in
absolutely.
Broadway for New York. I think all of them are in Broadway.
Yeah, because you know what you know what I actually saw? I saw Pete Davidson. You know who Pete Davidson is?
They do.
The comedian, right? He brought LMB pizza to the people on
To the
strike.
people, yeah, yeah, yeah. That's
Yeah.
been happening.
I
I
mean, you
think
look at Hassan. I think
food truck.
Hassan,
He bought
the
food for them too. Yeah.
yeah, he also bought pizza for a good amount of people there. You know who? You know the interaction. This is like kind of sidetracked, but you know who he came into interaction with?
Who?
You know that guy that the kid that's you read 10 books.
Yeah.
He actually had an interaction with him. It was
Was
at the protest.
it? It was like
So
stupid, right? I think I saw that.
yeah, it was a stupid little thing, but it was just funny to see that happen. But yeah, Hassan was there, because he is he in California?
He is.
Oh, he
Pretty
is.
sure.
I was trying to think. I was like, I don't know. I guess he is. I guess he has to be in California. I don't think he's in New York or Atlanta.
Yeah, it would have to be LA out of those three.
Yeah, I would say so. So, I mean, I've seen some clips on there, but definitely interesting. It goes back to what you've been talking about is like how the country needs more unions and stuff like that to
Yeah.
help workers.
Obviously, I mean, like I said though, like LA and the Writers Guild is a pretty big union. Like I think 67% of writers in California are unionized.
Mm,
But this is just an example where it's like, there's still work to be done. Like obviously once you're in a union, that's not it, because you have to actually negotiate, and sometimes negotiations to go south. So having that
oh
power
yeah.
to strike, that's really where the power comes from, is having like that structure there to support people who can go on strike and they get it publicized, or to financially support them, or have people come in and give them food and stuff like that. Obviously it'll disrupt the industry, but that's the point, to disrupt it. So it's saying, hey, like if you want this product, pay us for it. And yeah, I mean
Yeah.
that's pretty much all I have to say on it.
All right. I think that we're good to go.
Some updates on the situation with Tucker Carlson. We talked about it about a week and a half ago or so. Uh, obviously he's out at Fox. Basically fired. They didn't say fired in the pro meeting, but it's pretty clear at this point he was fired. And yeah, so it's talking about basically what's happened since we first talked about it and his plans for the future. So he obviously, since he left, there's been kind of like a tit for tat behind the scenes. A lot of videos like of him, behind the scenes of this show have leaked to Media Matters. Basically, just him making like weird comments and just stupid stuff. Um, Also, what is believed to be the text that got him fired leaked, where he basically is like talking about these group of, I guess, conservatives or MAGA type people, essentially jumping someone who is identified as an Antifa guy. I don't know if it was like because he's dressed in black and was like a liberal or something, but yeah, he was being jumped by these guys. And Tucker in the text kind of goes into great detail talking about how he kind of was rooting for the guy, and he used it as like a moment of self reflection. He's like, oh my god, I'm being kind of turned into like these crazy people, but which was really weird that he admitted that and kind of had that whole cycle. It's a little interesting. But what obviously the contentious thing wasn't really that part. It was the fact that when describing like the brutality and the way in which these guys were kind of attacking this one guy, he said, "White men don't fight like this." Which, it's a classic Tucker dog whistle. So I don't really know if this is it, because it's very normal par for the course. This would be on his show, honestly. Um, I think the bigger case is definitely all the controversies with the many lawsuits and things of that nature. But what makes it interesting beyond like the petty stuff is that Tucker wants to go to court with Fox. I don't know if he wants to go to court, but he wants to renegotiate the contract that he had, or get out of the contract that he's in with Fox, because Fox has a non-compete, which basically means that he can't go on, other shows or talk about politics in other forms until his contract ends. But what's funny is that his contract ends in January 2025, so he would be skipping over the entire election cycle and wouldn't be able to talk about it at all, which obviously if you have any kind of common sense is to see why that would be a big deal. Like 2024 election, a lot of eyes are on people, a lot of interest in that political field. So even if he is getting paid still, which he is actually getting paid, like not working at Fox in that time, which is a lot of money, but in theory he can make a lot more money, being able to cover those topics and build like a platform for himself in the long run. So obviously it's in his best interest to do that. And today he announced that he is going to be doing the show on Twitter.
Starting soon, we'll be bringing a new version of the show we've been doing for the last 6.5 years to Twitter. We'll be bringing some other things too, which we'll tell you about. But for now, we're just grateful to be here. Free speech is the main right that you have. Without it, you have no others. See you soon.
Instead of being on TV, he's gonna actually just, I don't know how it's gonna work, if he's gonna like, if it's gonna be the same format or if they're gonna change it up and it's gonna be like shorts or something, but he doesn't want to do like a show on Twitter. So I think it's really interesting how, you know, Tucker was one of the main people that really changed the audience at Fox, because Fox has always kind of been like enabling of like the conspiracy type stuff and playing into certain impulses of their base. And I think Tucker really took that and amplified it to 100 with a lot of the things that he would talk about as things would progress. I think at the end especially, it was clear with how he went about the coverage of January 6th and kind of implying it's like an inside job by the deep state and all this stuff. Also with Ukraine, kind of turning like legitimate concern about like the military industrial complex and kind of amplifying it into just like this complete and utter distrust of basically the entire American like official institutions. And that has extended now to beyond just like the United States government and the Democrats to Fox, even like more the conservative side of that coin. The Fox News audience, like their viewership has tanked since Tucker got fired, and a lot of these people are probably going to follow him, particularly in the younger space. I think the Fox has a pretty high like floor, like a minimum of like boomers that'll like listen and watch them and stuff like that. But when it comes to in the long run, in the future, there is going to be like a void that's kind of there. So it's interesting to see how we kind of dragged a lot of those guys out. I really think it kind of makes him like the granddaddy of like these like right wing grifters, right? Like he really just grifted so hard, and how like they believe nothing, but they believe everything at the same time. It's really interesting. I don't know. What do you have to say about it?
Well, it's what's jarring to me is that Fox let him go. That's off the bat. I mean,
I
the
think
fact that you let
they're
him
operating in
go.
a more like a more like legacy mindset though. Like it makes sense in a legacy mindset where it's like this guy has all these controversies. He's actually losing like he gets a lot of views, but he doesn't get advertiser money. Like people don't want to put their ads on especially his show, and probably even Fox. Some don't want to do Fox at all because of him or because of stuff like him too. So like obviously he's not the only one, but he was the most like he would push that the hardest, I feel like.
I could tell you,
And I think the
going off
controversy,
of.
like from their
Mhm.
point of view, it was getting there's like 3 more lawsuits gonna come based around this guy.
But
But at the
you're
same time, I mean, I think he pushed their audience so like in such a like weird direction now though, where it's like they don't trust Fox now. They trust not really him specifically, but that kind of like that MAGA type stuff.
no him and Newsmax. No, you were right. You're on the right track.
No, I don't think it's just him though. I think it's like obviously like Trump and that type of thing.
Well, look, like I said, I think it's jarring that they got rid of him regardless, even with the advertisements. I mean, you look at a lot of stuff on Newsmax, and I've seen some stuff on Newsmax pretty recently. And, like, if people don't want to show advertisements on Tucker's show, but want to do anything there, it's, like, mind boggling because it's, like, they really pound for pound, like, jump on certain people's cases
No,
and
but it's the same. It's
do.
the same ad. It's the same type of advertisers, though. Like obviously, there are ads on Tucker's show, but they're not. It's not as much ads, and it's not like the most. It's not the biggest advertiser companies either. Like the, they're losing a lot of what they can do. Newsmax isn't great in that department either. Newsmax as a whole, because their whole brand is that type of stuff.
But what does Hannity do that does a quote unquote better job that would bring advertisers?
I think when it comes to January 6th, he probably didn't go as far, and I think when it comes to Ukraine, he definitely didn't go as far.
But you have to understand something.
Like I think with Ukraine, it stops at they're spending too much money.
Look,
It won't go into like borderline defending Putin. And
okay,
when it comes to January 6th, it'll stop at well, Trump did nothing wrong. It's actually just the Democrats are overreacting a little.
okay, but you have to take it. You have to also take this into account. You think they just let him do that without notifying anybody? Because that's not all on him. That's just like, if anything, that's Fox's fault, not his. They're the ones that okayed that segment. That's not his fault. He can't be the one that turns around and says, "Yeah, no, this is it, and that's it. You have no word in this." No, they had a word in it. There's something for me that I think that it runs deeper than all of this. There has to be. There's no way they just dropped him like that, because this guy is money. You know, if you say, "Oh, the advertisers, bro," I'm telling
But it's
you.
not just that. It's also, they just lost a lawsuit because of something that he was one of the main people in promoting, and then
Okay,
there was three other
all right,
lawsuits, and also there was like three others on the same topic, and then there was like
yes,
two others on two other topics. So it's like it's not just that one or two thing. It's a lot of stuff, and I think it
that's
is pretty
great.
linked to
That's
that.
great. But guess what? Hannity is also on the list. Laura Ingram is on that list. You have Gene
Okay, but
Pinheiro.
there was also two other
Pinheiro is
lawsuits that
on
were
that
linked
list.
specific to Tucker Carlson.
You have
One of them was like about like
all
that
these.
the woman that was suing him for like the work related stuff, and then on top of that you had the guy at the FBI that was suing him because like, he's basically accusing this guy of like being like of like recruiting people for January 6th or whatever. So
Mhm.
yeah, I mean there's lawsuits that are specific to Tucker as well, not just like they all lied about the election fraud stuff. That's a big
I don't
thing.
know. Like, I feel like it runs deeper. I feel like there's just a
I mean,
disconnect.
but it could all apply. It could all apply too. It's
It
all
could. It
relative.
could. I mean,
I
but
think
there's
those
just
are
so
like
much.
the biggest reasons why, definitely.
And another reason that's also jarring, I mean, I guess it's understandable. I don't know how much money Rumble is worth or anything, but no one decided to make a deal with Tucker. And what was interesting
Well, they
about
can't.
that, and why I say that, they can't make a deal, I guess. But what was interesting is what Tucker says, the only free speech platform to exist is Twitter. There's no mention of Rumble, which I thought was very interesting given the base. Um, so he's gonna be on Twitter now. I'm sure he'll rack in a lot of views in his first few videos. Then it's gonna die down as usual. Then he'll say something, somewhat controversial, teeter that line, make big clip, and then how it goes. But I think he's money. I think that anyone would be. I think Fox made a mistake by dropping him. They lost so much money, and now
Well,
the
they don't know what to
aftermath.
do because it's like
I understand
they
that, but
chase if they just chase the money with their base, they're gonna keep getting like sued and getting all this controversial stuff that's gonna make them lose money in the long run. But then in the present moment, they're doing the things that theoretically are smart. Then obviously their current base is gonna hate them, so they're gonna lose money anyway. So they're just in a shit position.
maybe the long game is what they play, and maybe they are playing this smart. Maybe they
I mean,
look
they might
at
just be fucked all around, right? I think
they they could
media in
be.
general is just like not in like journalism in general, like in establishment journalism at least. Even locally, it's like, but it's like different problems if you want to go smaller. But like the establishment journalism, obviously, it's like people don't want to watch the news usually because they think it's like bullshit, or they just don't want to like have it shoved in their face constantly.
Well, of course, but
And then the
as
people
we
that are
talked
already
about,
there, it's like there's specific things that they want to see that it pretty much is just limited to that, right?
well, the news is around also to appease old people, old retired people who want to know what's going on. So they say. So it's like they'll tune into all these different type of news channels for that. Now for Fox, their base, a lot of them are starting to jump to Newsmax. But what I'm thinking about here is that maybe they are playing the long game. Maybe they're actually, because they're not dumb people at Fox. I mean, I any of these places, they're really not dumb. I mean, the reason why they have the money that they do and the reason why they do the things that they do is because they're tactical. I mean, any smart businessman would do probably what they're doing and hundreds of others. So maybe they're doing this. Maybe they got rid of him because, like you said, all the controversy, this, and that. And if Dominion Smartmatic decide to run after Newsmax, if Newsmax doesn't have the money, they go bankrupt, they go defunct. And who do they have left as competition? I guess they don't really have anybody. So it could also be that. Um, a lot of things at play, but I think it's definitely something else that we don't know. The missing puzzle piece to why Tucker's out. Um, or it could just be that.
I think those reasons are solid enough, though. You know,
It could
like
be. I mean, I'm not denying what you're saying. I just think that there's a possibility that there's
because there comes a point
something
where
deeper.
you lose so much money from stuff that the attention almost doesn't matter.
I don't know, man.
Because
He's.
if they're getting sued, like they just lost 700 million from one case.
But why didn't they
They're
also
getting
get rid of
sued for
Hannity?
1 million. Because Hannity he's not as relevant. He's just not as relevant.
But
And he's more of like
still.
he's more of just a toe the party line kind of guy too.
Okay, I understand that, but he was also in the text messages.
Okay.
That was also like a bad thing for them because he said he didn't believe in the voter fraud.
Yeah, it was bad for them. But it's just not
Yeah.
the same. Like it's just not as controversial. And again, there's not lawsuits at the moment that are specific to Hannity.
I mean, true, but like I said, I think we're gonna find something else. I think we're gonna find
Maybe we
something else.
will, but I don't think there's a reason to go beyond what we know at the moment.
I mean, I guess.
I guess
We'll
it
we'll
just
see
comes
what
down to that.
happens.
Like
Yeah.
maybe there is more to it. Maybe there's more reasons why. Maybe some of them are kind of weird, but the reasons that we can assess right now would just make a lot of sense.
Yeah. It's
And
interesting. I
it'll be
mean,
interesting too to see if doing it on Twitter is also kind of like a play to kind of skirt like legal liability. Like
yeah.
maybe the show at first will be like completely free.
What do you mean, as in for like free speech, or you mean like just
Just
like?
like free, like financially, like there won't be a subscription or anything, and there won't be like even ads. Like he won't make money off of it, basically.
Well, he can have subscriptions on Twitter now, so.
No, but I'm saying legally, like to
Oh,
not
okay.
void his contract he has.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Like seeing how that plays out will be interesting.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, we talked about this last time. The no compete clause is such bullshit on so many levels.
Yeah, it is.
But Tucker Carlson's definitely an interesting situation going on, and we're definitely gonna be covering every step of the way. I don't really have much to add to the Tucker scenario at the moment. I can't really think of anything at the moment. Do you have
Move
anything
on
else?
to we can move on to another funny, funny
Oh
thing.
boy.
So, our boy Donald Trump being what is it? He's ordered to pay $5 million to Jean Carroll. If you are living under a rock and don't know why, it's because this woman is suing him, going after him for sexual misconduct, sexual assault. And after she came out with the story, basically Trump went on like a whole because it's him, he's gonna go on a whole thing. I don't even know that woman. It's all bullshit. They're coming after me and doing the whole thing. But I think emphasizing that he didn't even know this person, and obviously he's going after her character, being like she's a liar, she's this and that. She also was able to add defamation to that case, and it was decided by a jury. I think they described it. It was like 4 women and two guys or something. I don't know the specifics of
No, it
them.
was the jury.
The jurors.
It was 6 guys and 3 women, I believe.
Okay, but regardless, they're not gonna disclose her identity, at least for now, because obviously when it comes to cases with Trump, there's gonna be people who are very adamant supporters of him, and they're gonna send all the threats and stuff like that. It's just the reality of it. So it's probably better for them not to have their identities out there, at least right now.
Wherever.
Yeah, I don't know. Um, so she obviously won the case as of right now. Maybe he's gonna file like a complaint or whatever to try to not do that. But it is interesting to note, um, Trump himself wasn't present when the jury was being decided. His defense, I think he had someone representing him, but it wasn't really like a strong defense. I think basically the only thing they really emphasized was they didn't like how people were using the Access Hollywood tape against him in that case, but obviously it's relevant because her claim is that, this influential, successful guy used his influence and success to assault me or whatever. So obviously they're going to use him basically admitting to that he does stuff like that against him. And there was deposition video that was very viral last week of him saying, "Oh yeah, I mean, it's true. Obviously it's true. Maybe it's good, maybe it's bad, unfortunately or unfortunately." So,
The fortunately part was kind of wild.
yeah. It's like wild, but it's also not surprising at all. It's yeah, it's definitely an interesting one. I know Chris has a lot to say about it, but I think it's pretty likely, even if it wasn't this person, he's definitely done some weirdo assault type stuff. Just given that, one, I mean, he admitted to it, obviously, in that tape, and two, he just kind of, I don't know. He just gives those vibes. He's from that era too, where that stuff is very rampant. I don't know. That's my take on it.
Um, this whole case is like it kind of boggles my mind because I really don't know. At the end of the day, it's a he said she said situation, like all other rape cases, or most of them, especially ones that have not been brought to the table until like another 20 years later, and 30 years later, 40 years later, and all that. And I watched the CNN interview with Anderson Cooper because she was on there, and I watched that, and her response was just like, I
Don't feel like a victim.
I was not thrown on the ground and ravished, which the word rape carries so many sexual connotations. This was not sexual. It hurt. It just
But I think most people think of rape as it is a violent assault. It is not.
I think most
sexual.
people think of rape as being sexy.
Let's take a short break.
Think of the fantasies.
We're just going to take a quick break. If you can stick around, we'll talk more on the other side.
You're fascinating to talk to.
And man, after watching that clip, I was like, I don't know if I believe this person now. It's just, you don't want to be that guy and be like, okay, I don't believe you, but like in a case like this, like in a serious crime like this, but you have that, and then you also have, Trump saying, fortunately for the other thing, right?
It's true with stars that they can grab women by the.
Well, that's what it's. If you look over the last million years, I guess that's been largely true. Not always, but largely true. Unfortunately or fortunately.
And then he also said something that was interesting. I don't know if it was just his eyesight or whatever, but he goes, "Oh, that's not my type." And then a black and white photo comes up, and it's of him with her, and he goes, "Oh, that was my wife, like his ex-wife." And it turns out it wasn't her; it was actually Jean Carroll.
You have in front of you a black and white photograph that we've marked as DJT23, and I'm going to ask you: is this the photo that you were just referring to?
I think so. Yes.
Okay. And do you recall when you first saw this photo?
At some point during the process, I saw it. That's, I guess, her husband, John Johnson, who was an anchor for ABC. Nice guy, I thought. I mean, I don't know him, but I thought he was pretty good at what he did. I don't even know who the woman. Let's see. I don't know who. It's Marla.
You say Marla's in this photo?
That's Marla. Yeah, that's my wife.
Which woman are you pointing to? No.
Here.
Carroll.
Oh, is that?
The person
okay.
you just pointed to was
Oh, I
Jean
see.
Carroll.
Who is that? Who is this?
Point, your wife.
And the woman on the right is your then wife.
I don't know.
Ivana?
This was the picture.
Ivana.
I assume that's John Johnson. Is that
That's Carroll.
Carroll? Because it's very blurry.
So it's just things are not adding up right. And I don't know what happened. I don't know if it was BS or not. And Trump probably wasn't there because he felt like that he won this case. There's no reason to pay this money or this or that. And it's one of those cases where I guess we won't really know. Whenever they say, like, oh, this happened 20 years ago and all that other stuff, like I said before, it's hard to really say what happened.
He's not really building a case for himself either, though. You know what I mean? Like, that interview happened like 3 years ago. A lot can kind of happen in terms of how she wants to present, her situation.
Well, it
Obviously,
really
it's been an
came out
ongoing case, though.
because she got upset that he was saying, like, oh, yeah, she's a liar, this and that. So then it came into, like, a different type of case.
Yeah. But still,
You know
I
what I
mean,
mean?
if it
And
was true, though, that he was, but that's the thing, though, because if it is defamation, then maybe, if he's wrong and he's knowingly wrong, and maybe there is something there to that, though, at the same time, right? So it is like a complicated thing.
slippery slope. I mean,
For
I
why,
wouldn't.
though?
I'm saying on an issue like this.
What's the slippery slope, though?
Of knowing of what he did or what he didn't do.
Well, I mean, that's all defamation cases, right? As we've been learning.
Defamation cases have been coming out like crazy. It's annoying. It's coming to be annoying as of late. But I'm saying in the
I mean,
case of,
it makes sense. There's just so much, just so
I'm
much
not talking about the
lying, right?
defamation end. I'm talking about like the crime that he was originally there for, the rape case, which
Well, I'm saying,
she
but
said
my
it
point
wasn't.
is that
Because she said it wasn't. That's what like is like interesting to me.
but
And
why
then
is
so the
that?
jury said that
I
no, it
don't think
wasn't.
that's really.
I'm not
But
saying
it can still be
he,
sexual assault and not be rape, though. Like, sexual assault isn't just rape.
of course, but that's what she was going after him on. It was just
Rape?
weird. And so then that's why it had to go to sexual abuse, or yeah, that's where with battery, I think he was charged with. So he's gonna pay the $5 million most likely, and
Right,
that's
I don't
it.
know. He's probably gonna challenge it and drag it out to be a whole
Yeah,
thing.
you can challenge it. Yeah, I mean, that's probably what he's gonna do. Actually, he's probably gonna challenge it, and then if
Yeah.
he loses, what he pays it.
Donate to save Donald Trump. You already know those emails are coming out.
Oh yeah, probably,
The
absolutely.
woke mob is coming after me with another fake case.
Huh.
You know the whole shtick.
Oh yeah, of course. I mean, that's really gonna rally people up. But yeah, I
Do you think
just
it has any impact at all? Anything electorally? You think it's the
no,
same?
no. Because I think a lot of people who are thinking like in the sense of like, I guess kind of case where I'm thinking in the sense of like it could be like an either or type situation.
Do you think Trump gets to the 70% mark even more in the
For the
primary?
primaries, yeah,
Yeah,
I think
maybe.
Well, I don't know if it really affects him that much. I think he's getting there regardless, but
Yeah,
um,
that's fair.
but like I said, other voters in like in general, I mean, they're gonna look at it and be like, oh, okay. Like they're probably not gonna look into this case as much.
You either think he's a crook already, or you're like you don't. Some right, it kind of gets you.
Or yeah, either that or you're just in the middle and you're just gonna vote him in because you don't like the other guy. That's where you're down to. You're down to your three. So I mean,
I wonder if
that's it.
there's gonna be a significant drop in voters
I
in
don't think so.
2024.
Oh, as a total?
Yeah, like, because, like 2020 was the most voted election, like, ever. So do you think, I wonder how much, I think it's going to be less, but I wonder how much less it's going to be.
Well, there's gonna be no mail-in, so no, I'm joking. I don't want to get in trouble by YouTube. I do not want to get in trouble by YouTube. No, it's not happening again. Then we have to go through this whole thing. No. Yeah, I hate that they would even think about striking this. I hope not. It's satire. It's a joke. Speaking of satire and a joke,
Speaking of jokes.
George Santos has been charged by federal prosecutors. And for what charge? We don't know. We'll find out.
This is the woke mob. This is the
Actually,
real
you
woke
know
mob
what?
going after.
Oh yeah, this is actually I think this is actually gonna be done by today. Like by the time this video gets out, like a little bit later than that, because they said by Wednesday we can know. But I'm
Ooh.
assuming they mean like this Wednesday, which means like today when this video drops. So as of this video dropping, we do not know what's gonna happen. But I said maybe, like there's a chance. So, it's filed in the Eastern District of New York. Remain under seal, like I said, until possibly Wednesday. So whenever Santos appears in court is when we'll know exactly what. And something that I want to just bring out as a random, because I mean we could go into his lies, which I'll list a few. Having a Jewish ancestry, Wall Street background, college degrees, him being a star volleyball player, working with vets. I mean, it's really something. But the Times uncovered records in Brazil that show Santos, when he was 19, was the subject of a criminal investigation there in 2008 over allegations he used stolen checks to buy items at a clothing shop in the city of, I don't know if I want to pronounce that. In a city in Brazil. I really don't want to botch that for Brazilians, okay? I'm doing you the favor, actually. I'm doing me the favor, but I'm also doing you guys the favor, okay? Brazilian authorities said they had reopened the case. So, this guy is lie after lie after lie.
And fraud after fraud, too.
Fraud
apparently.
after fraud. So, this guy's hilarious. He really is. And
He's really something.
he's really something. Republicans hate him. They can't stand him, and they have every right to not like this man. This man literally made their party look like a joke during that election last year. It's really unfortunate.
I think he exposed the whole thing.
Yeah. Yeah, he kind of, well, you know what he did?
What?
He looked at the voters in the eye and said, yeah, I'm all these things. And screwed the people that voted him in more than any other politician.
I am black. I am gay.
Oh yeah. Oh, that's a great meme. But yeah, I mean, God, this dude is really a travesty to the Republican Party.
Pretty funny.
It's funny, but at the same time, it's like I had enough of goofballs as politicians. I kind of want to see good politicians on both sides do both wonderful things, but unfortunately, we don't live in a utopia. We live in real life, and that's not going to happen. So we have people like George Santos doing his thing. Listen, he's very interesting. I think he's an interesting man. I think he's one of the most interesting men in politics. And we will follow this case. And hopefully by the next podcast, next episode, we will talk more on this. Is there anything you want to add to this, or is that okay?
That's all for now.
So, thank you for tuning in. Like I said, sorry that we did not have 2 episodes last week. We only had 1, but we will make that up. Don't worry. We will make that up most likely this week. And so yeah, thank you for tuning by. Leave a like, subscribe, comment.